review that I'll be doing, and it is a book titled The Silent Wife by A.S.A. Harrison. So this book was like a really wild adventure. Started off slow, really slow, to the point where I was like, am I going to be able to still finish this book? And then it got to the point where I was getting really excited, had to stay up late to finish and see where we're at. So anyway, the main characters, there's very few characters in this book. So it's about a couple, Jody Brett and Todd Gilbert, and they are on the rocks. Jody has known for a long time that Todd is not faithful, and she kind of like lets it go. She's one of those wives that's like, well, men will be men, so if I just ignore it, it'll be fine, which is annoying. And Jody is just not a very likable character from the beginning, because she's a psychologist, but she's very anal retentive. So she talks a lot about how she likes things in their place, how she likes to make recipes for Todd when he comes home. And even though she has some clients as a psychologist, she does a lot of, they're living a very wealthy lifestyle because of Todd's income. So again, it starts off, Todd is a serial cheater. She is a very anal retentive, but also submissive wife. And then you start to find out that Todd has not only been sleeping around, but he is definitely having an ongoing affair with Natasha, who is significantly younger than Todd, like young enough to be his daughter, young. And Natasha is not very likable either. She's with Todd because of his wealth, you can tell. She's a college student. But she likes the way Todd spoils her, and she very much is pressuring Todd to leave Jody so that him and her can be this thing going forward. Well, as you go on in the book, you find out that Todd has met Natasha through his best friend, Dean, who is his best friend. Todd is sleeping with his best friend's daughter and having this ongoing affair. And Todd is a sleazeball. And so I would say about midway through the book, with this story, the author introduces some backstory for Jody. I'm trying to mention this stuff because it's in there and it feels like the author wanted it to be significant, but I felt like it was unnecessary and kind of a reach. So anyway, midway through, the author introduces this character that Jody used to know in her past. It was her psychologist or psychiatrist that she had started seeing as she's learning about psychology. And he starts analyzing her dreams and analyzing stuff from her past. She is one of 3 siblings. She's the middle child, and her younger brother had all these issues or terrors or fits, and only she could calm him down. And his name is Ryan. And her older brother, Daniel, is like the golden boy, golden child. So she's talking through these relationship dynamics in her family, and how her mom and dad always used to be in arguments and would use their kids to kind of manipulate each other. So you're starting to hear some of Jody's backstory and maybe why she is the way she is, and empathizing with her a little more. So that started to make me not be annoyed with her as much. Meanwhile, Todd gets Natasha pregnant. And so Natasha has this great excuse now for him to leave Jody. And Todd is kind of like, holy shit, like this is real now. I have to either choose Jody and leave Natasha, who is now pregnant with my child, or finally cut ties with Jody and become this husband and father with Natasha. And that decision's kind of quickly made for him because Natasha tells her dad that they've been having this affair, and Dean is pissed. And Todd really quickly goes into recovery mode and is like begging Dean, his, longtime childhood best friend, don't worry, I'm going to take care of her. I'm going to marry her. Like, we're going to be a family together. Please forgive me. This will be fine. I'm leaving Jody. And so he does. He finally goes. And before he leaves Jody, though, Jody finds out from Dean. Dean calls Jody and says, do you know what Todd and Natasha have been up to? And Jody chooses to take that information and completely ignore it and act like everything is fine. And because Todd is not saying anything, she assumes in her head he's not going to leave her. He's going to deal with this baby either by abortion, or they're just going to have this extra kid that they will help raise with Natasha. And so that part was really annoying to me too, because I'm like, why are you not addressing this? Why are you not getting pissed off and reacting to Todd? So throughout the story, though, Jody is transparent that when she does find out about Todd's infidelity, and again, this isn't the first one, she does little things to like get back at him. So for example, she will take his office keys and throw them away so that when he gets to the office, he doesn't know what happens to his keys and he can't get, he's locked out, and he has to go through this whole locksmith ordeal. And for her, that is kind of her revenge or her punishment to Todd. So she does have one reaction when she finds out that from Dean that that Todd has been sleeping with Natasha. She chooses to give Todd like 12 sleeping pills and just see what happens. And there's like a little foreshadowing, I would say, because the next morning he doesn't wake up, and she again doesn't address it, doesn't shake him, doesn't check his pulse to see if he's alive. She instead is like, well, if he's dead, I'll figure out what my next move is. But he isn't dead, don't worry. He doesn't die. He gets up and proceeds to wait a couple weeks until he tells her ultimately he is leaving. He got an apartment with Natasha. He's moving out. She's pregnant. And so finally it's like this climax of, we both know we're talking about it. And then it's kind of a letdown again, at least for me as a reader, because he moves out and it's just a little bit slow moving from there. So I am going to pause at this point in this review and tell you, if you want to read this book, which I do recommend reading, I did rate it a 6.5 out of 10 to stop so that I don't reveal the rest of the book. But if you do not want to read the book and you want the full review, proceed. So he's moved out with Natasha. Jody is at home waiting and upset, waiting for him to return to her. And at one point he does. He chooses to come home in a drunken stupor, lead her on, sleep with Jody, have sex with her, and then again return to Natasha. And when Jody calls him and is like, I thought we were getting back together, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. That was just a thing. And don't worry, we can do that thing occasionally still, even though I'm with Natasha. So again, very clear lines are drawn for me where I hate Todd at this point. He is a scumbag, and I cannot wait until what is going to happen to him towards the end of this book. So then he starts cutting Jody off. He starts cutting her credit cards. He sends her an eviction notice to their very big fancy apartment. And again, like I said, she's been living off of Todd. She is not the breadwinner. She is a psychologist, but her clients are minimal. And so she will literally be left with nothing if he proceeds with, or if all of this is going as planned. Another thing that I forgot to mention is these two, although they've been together for, I believe it's like 17 or 18 years, they never got married. So Todd knows, and he's gone to his lawyer and found out that legally he doesn't owe Jodi a dime, and he's going to not give her a dime. So Jodi has a small group of friends that she's surface level close with, but one in particular is Allison. And Allison works at a nightclub, like a stripper joint. So she knows some like shady characters. So as Jodi's like bawling, crying, and telling Allison where she's at with this whole situation, Allison comes up with this idea that she knows a guy from her work that Jodi can very easily, like a hitman, and Jodi can very easily provide her with a large amount of funds, and Allison will take those funds, give it to this hitman, and kill Todd, essentially. And so Jodi immediately, and it says something in the book, like it feels like she's in a dream, but she immediately reacts and says yes. And she starts selling off things for cash so she can get enough cash to give to Allison. Well, Allison tells her, here's like the rule book, I guess, of buying a hit. She says, don't, you know, you need to plan a trip to be out of town while this is happening. So plan a trip so you're not here. Don't contact him. Don't create a paper trail. So don't like take these funds out of your account. Make sure it's cash. And we'll be in touch. Like I might not reach out to you right away. And so Jodi was like, okay. So she does all this. She gives her this large amount of cash. She books a trip to like a psychology, what do you call them? Like a workshop or convention. That's what it is, a convention. And she knows whatever's going to happen. So this book jumps from Jodi's perspective to Todd's perspective as you're reading through it. And so it does hop to Todd's perspective, and you see he's in his vehicle. He's on his way to meet not Natasha, not Jodi, but another chick that he met in a bar that he's going to meet for a date while his pregnant, used to be lover is at home planning their wedding. So again, you have very little empathy for Todd because he is shot in his Mercedes at a stop sign. So the hit is successful and he dies. Well, the cops come over to Jodi's house because, of course, regardless of her being out of town, she's the top suspect. She's freaking out. She is not reacting well. She feels bad because she was with this man forever. She did love him. But the really weird part is that you can't, like, she can't get a hold of Allison. So Allison is like gone, which at first she doesn't think is weird. But then she's like, well, I need to make sure that I'm doing the right steps, and I need to make sure like everything's good with the money and everything. Well, long story short, she thinks she's going to get caught because the cops are honing in on her. She's almost positive because the cops find like some of these cash transactions. The cops think it's weird that she went on this convention when she hasn't been anywhere in like 6 years. So it's like the cops are honing in. So finally, the cop comes to her house and is like, hey, we found out. We know that sometimes it's someone who's really close to the victim, so this may come as a shocker. But it is Dean who actually put the hit out on Todd. And Dean paid off these men, and the men, we've caught them, and they have confessed. And so it turns out that even though Jodi set up this hit, Dean's hit people got to Todd first. And Allison just was a shitty friend and took off with a bunch of cash that Jodi gave her. Oh, and I forgot the middle part about when she's going through her family dynamic and this really weird like extra that's in there. Turns out that her older brother molested her when she was very young as well. And he also probably molested his younger brother, which is why he was having those fits. So it gives her a little insight into herself and why she is the way she is. But again, I thought it was a really weird add to this book. I didn't think it was necessary. I thought it was just a weird plot line that really went nowhere. Anyway, highly recommend this book. It was an interesting little roller coaster. It's called The Silent Wife by A.S.A. Harrison. I want to let you guys know next week I have what I will be reviewing in the holiday spirit is Murder at an Irish Christmas by Carleen O'Connor, who is apparently a pretty famous mystery writer, but this is the first one that I've read by her. So that'll be next week for you all. Thanks for watching my very first review.